ለመማር ወደ ትምህርት ተቋም መሄድ ግድ አይደለም። ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ
ራሳችሁን ከኮሮና ቫይረስ ወረርሽኝ እየጠበቃችሁ በቤታችሁ ወይም በተመቻችሁ ቦታ በኢንተርኔት አማካኝነት በኦንላይን ትምህርታችሁን መከታተል ትችላላችሁ።
ካናዳ ከሚገኘው ኢንተርናሽናል ኤር ትራንስፖርት አሶሲዬሽን አያታና ከእንግሊዙ ኢንስቲትዩት ኦፍ ኮመርሻል ማኔጅመንት ICM ጋር በመተባበር የሚሰጡ ትምህርቶችን ተከታትላችሁ በ6 ወር ጊዜ በዓለም አቀፍ ደረጃ ተቀባይነት ያለውን የስልጠና ማስረጃ ባለቤት መሆን ይቻላል።
ልምድ ባላቸው መምህራን እየተማራችሁ ጥያቄና መልስ የክፍል ስራዎች ፈተና መፈተን ክፍል ውስጥ እንዳላችሁት አይነት በኦንላይን ባላችሁበት ቦታ ከናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ
የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ
Hello guys. Hello.
Hello teacher.
እንዴት ዋላችሁ?
እግዚአብሔር ይመስገን። እንዴት ዋል?
እግዚአብሔር ይመስገን። Okay. Welcome to this session. Last time we have discussed the topography of Ethiopia and the Horn in general. As a region, the topography of Ethiopia and the Horn Africa has almost similar structure because the formation of this region was almost on the same season, but because of the uneven distribution of the uneven nature of these events, both endogenous and exogenous forces, the face of countries varies from one to the other. Even within the same region, within a single country, you can imagine the variations of the physical appearances of the relief structures, the physical appearance of the countries. For instance, you can imagine the northern part of Ethiopia and the central part of Ethiopia. Because natural forces are not evenly distributed, are not equally available over the space. As a result, the faces, the structure and physiognomy of the earth within a single country too varies. Whatever the variation is, all countries have irregularities, have ups and downs. Okay, there are mountains, hills, plateaus, gorges, so on and so forth in almost all parts of the Horn of Africa. As a result, many of the Horn of Africa countries are mountainous. Okay, but specifically our home Ethiopia is more mountainous than other countries of the Horn. We can call our home as mountainous because the majority of its landform is occupied by highlands of more than 1,000 meters above sea level. Specifically, the northern part of Ethiopia has highlands, has high-rising mountains. Okay, because if you remembered, during the first Cenozoic era, the landmass was tilted up and down. During that season, the northern part of Ethiopia experienced uprising. Okay. As a result, northern part of Ethiopia has huge mountains and hills. But it doesn't mean that the other part of Ethiopia has no mountains. There are also mountains in eastern part of Ethiopia, central part of Ethiopia, so on and so forth. Whatever it is, last time we see more about what physiography means, topography means, what highlands and lowlands are, how each early structure is characterized by. For instance, what are the characteristics of highlands? What are the characteristics of lowlands? What makes highlands different from lowlands in terms of climate, in terms of water resource, in terms of reef structure, so on and so forth. In terms of population distribution, people's working culture, so on and so forth. What kind of economic activity people rely on in highlands, in lowlands? What about the density of population in each relief structure, so on and so forth. Naturally, highlands experience cooler temperature and lowlands experience hot temperature with no doubt. As I've discussed so far, this is mainly because temperature and altitude has inverse relationship. I said that many of our highland regions experience moderate and cooler temperature, and hence occupied by dense, large number of people. Large number of people are found per square kilometer. As a result, highland regions of Ethiopia are densely populated regions. Because we human beings naturally prefer what kind of climate? We prefer a very moderate kind of climate. That's what. Neither cold nor warm. We need a very suitable, a very attractive, and breathtaking kind of climate. Regions that experience this kind of climate are highland regions. As a result, these regions are densely populated in Ethiopia. Why people prefer this kind of climate is a very important question. Because around these regions, you can imagine the availability of water, you can imagine the availability of rain, you can imagine how water and rain are suitable for agricultural and other kinds of economic activities. People around this region produce goods and services that they are relying on, dependent on, by using rain, sulfate water, and even underground water, because water is sufficiently available around these regions. On the contrary, around lowland regions, the temperature is very hot, very high. As a result, you can imagine the evaporation of water and other liquid particles around this region. And thus this region is highly suffered by absence of and sometimes lack of water. As a result, rainfed agriculture is very difficult in these lowland regions. Even in Ethiopia, you can imagine the eastern part of Ethiopia, the eastern lowland. People around this region are dependent on solely by keeping animals, by rearing animals. They have very little attachment on agricultural activities, particularly rain-fed agricultural activities. Apart from this, we have also discussed the divisions of the physiography of Ethiopia into different categories. The variables we have used to group or classify the whole physiography of Ethiopia into Western Highlands and Lowlands, Eastern Highlands and Lowlands, and the Rift Valley region as nothing but the depression that was occurred during the first Cenozoic era, the so-called the Great Ethiopian and East African Rift Valley. That depression resulted, as I said, two physiographic regions here and there. Okay, these regions are western part of that depression and eastern part of that depression. So physiographically, Ethiopia has three regions. In each physiographic region, there are lowlands, there are also highlands. Okay, we have also seen the details of each physiographic division, the details. Okay, the lowlands and highlands of the western physiographic region. We have also seen the lowlands and highlands of the eastern or southeastern physiographic region last time. What I advise you today is nothing, but you have to differentiate the western and eastern physiographic regions by just identifying main points that help you differentiate these two physiographic regions. For instance, where the western physiographic region is found, first we have to have the location of each physiographic region. Where is it? Okay, you have to locate each physiographic region using the absolute location or relative location. For instance, relatively, you can express the western physiographic region as those areas of Ethiopia that are found westward from the Rift Valley region, beginning the northern tip of Ethiopia, particularly Tigray northern part, westward all the way up to the southern tip of Ethiopia. Okay, and we can also use latitude and longitude to express each physiographic division. Number one, after just identifying where it is, after answering the question where, you are expected to identify the highlands and lowlands that are found in each physiographic category. Which highlands are found in the western physiographic division? Which lowlands are also found there? What about the westward highland regions and lowland regions? Okay, so that you can easily conceptualize, you can easily draw the map of the westward and eastward physiographic region of Ethiopia without practically visiting the whole area of Ethiopia. Okay. I'm sure this chapter will help you draw the map of your home, Ethiopia, without necessarily traveling across Ethiopia. Once you identify where it is and the highlands and lowlands of Ethiopia, that is very easy to draw conclusion whether that kind of topography, that kind of physiography is suitable for permanent settlement or not. Because that location, that physiographic region, that relief structure tells us the existing weather condition, climatic condition, water resource availability, the rocks and minerals, so on and so forth. Okay. My question here to you is, which highland region are found in the western part of the Rift Valley region? As you know, the western physiographic region has 4 highland subcategories, sub-regions. The Tigrayan Plateau, the North Central Massif, the Southwestern Highlands, and the Central Highlands. Here as well, we have to know where each highland region is found. We have to know which mountains are found in each highland regions. And we have to know the rivers, streams, lakes, whatever water resources are originated from, stemmed from each highland region. As I have said several times last time, water, streams, rivers begin to flow or stemmed from somewhere, number 1, in highland regions, because that highland region experiences hosts very cold temperature. As a result, rain is available. Rain is abundant almost all year round in cooler temperature zones, like ours around Ras region, for instance. Number 1. Number 2, rivers, water, so on and so forth. Flowing rivers begin from oceans, from seas, marshy grounds, lakes, so on and so forth. But here in our home, Ethiopia, we are not lucky enough because we have no sea and lake closer to us. We have no sea and oceans surrounding us. As a result, no river begin from these water bodies, from oceans, seas, and even lakes, even though we have sufficient number of, we have, large number of lakes here in Ethiopia. Unfortunately, there is no river, flowing from these lakes, because our lakes have smaller volume of water, and the volume of water of our lakes are dependent on suppliers or seasonal tributaries. As a result, our rivers are originated from mountainous areas, highland areas. When you differentiate each highland region as a result here, you have to also differentiate which rivers flow in which part of Ethiopia. Which rivers, for instance, drain or feed the people of Tigray in the Tigrayan Plateau, around Tigrayan Plateau, number 1. Which rivers feed or supply or drain the region of North Central Massif, Gondar, Wollo, Gojjam. Which rivers drain the Shawan Plateau or Central Plateau? Which rivers feed the Southwestern Highlands? You have to differentiate it. Because knowing the major rivers draining these regions helps you, for instance, in the future, to decide which business is suitable in which part of Ethiopia. For instance, if you want to be an investor on agricultural sector, for instance, you need to have raw materials like land, like water, so on and so forth. Of the raw materials required to this business, number one is water availability. So that knowing the existing water resources in our home helps us decide a good decision at the end of the day. So in Western Highlands, which mountains are found also? Which one is the icon of which part of Ethiopia? Okay. As I have said several times last time, in the Tigrayan Plateau, there are different mountains of different sizes, different heights. In the North Central Massif, there are also mountains having different altitudinal extent. In the Shoa Plateau too, in the Southwestern Highlands, in the Hararghe Plateau, Arsi, Bale, Sidama, there are also different mountains, icons, symbols of each region. If so, we have to precisely identify each symbols of each mountains. For instance, the highest mountain in Ethiopia is found in which highland regions of Ethiopia? Specifically, I'm not saying in which physiographic region, I'm saying in which highland region. Vinian, can you please tell me the highest point of Ethiopia, the highest place?
Can I answer, Chair?
Yes?
It is Ras Dashen in northern highland region.
Thank you very much, Vinian. Balai or Vinian?
It's Balai.
Balai, thank you very much. The highest point in Ethiopia as Ras Dashen or Ras Deje. Ras Dashen is, I think, commonly having an altitude of 4,620. This is a symbol of the North Central Massif in Ethiopia, particularly the Gondar Highlands. What about the Tigray Plateau? What about the symbols of the Western Highlands? What about the symbols of the icons of the highest mountains of the Central Highlands or the Shoa Plateau? What about the Arsi? What about the Bali, Sidama? Which part is suitable for instance, grain production? Grain is a symbol of a given highland region. Whenever you hear the name grain, I'm sure you could associate it to some parts of Ethiopia, some places of Ethiopia. Because that is the symbol, the mark of that particular region. Even though grain is produced in almost all parts of Ethiopia. In which highland regions grain is common, grain production is common? In which part of Ethiopia coffee production is common? These are some of the questions that you have to raise when you try to identify the physiographic regimes and associated landforms, climatic conditions, economic activities, population distribution, whatever. Today, let's look at the third physiographic region, the so-called the Rift Valley region. In terms of geographic extent too, which one is the largest in terms of area? Which one is the smallest? Geographic extent, which geographic region? Is also another very important question as a geographic concept. Well, the Rift Valley, you know more about how it was formed. You know the characters of this region, the Rift Valley region. in our chapter 2 discussion. Rift Valley is a geologic event that was formed during the first part of season of the 2 days era. Okay. This formation was mainly due to internal forces, tectonic forces. Okay. Of the tectonic forces, don't forget, tensional forces had a significant and profound impact for the formation of the Rift Valley region. Because these forces, the so-called tensional forces, have a divergent effect by just pushing the part of the land apart. Okay? When once fracture occurred, when once crack occurred, you can imagine, and when these forces push that land apart, the land mass in between two parallel cracks was, as I have said several times in chapter, to collapse it down, move it down. Okay? And the land mass on sides of the two cracks were moved up. As that geologic process, due to this geologic process, a very big depression was formed in the Horn Africa. This depression is also called the Great East African Depression or the Great East African Crack Rift, because the majority of this rift is found here in Eastern Africa by just touching many Eastern African countries, including Ethiopia, Eritrea, so on and so forth, up to Mozambique, don't forget. Having the total distance of nearly 5,600 kilometers here in Eastern Africa. This tectonically formed depression has different characteristics. Okay. Number one, let me remind you once again the total distance here in Ethiopia and the Horn Africa. Even though in Eastern Africa, this depression measures nearly 5,600 meters, I mean kilometers. The total of this 5,600 kilometers, total distance, total area, how many kilometers are found here in Ethiopia and the Horn Africa? Is a very important question. Nearly 2,000 kilometers, 1,700 kilometers, total area is found here in Ethiopia and the Horn Africa. Beginning the Afar Triangle, the northern part of the rift, here in the Horn Africa, up to the southern tip of Ethiopia, up to Chao Bahar. This rift measures nearly 1,700 kilometers. By this total distance, north-south extent or northeast-southwest extent, don't forget, this region constitutes nearly 18% of the total area of Ethiopia. 18%, don't forget. Did you remember the total area of the Western Highlands and Lowlands physiographic region and the Southeastern Highlands and Lowlands? Okay. The Western Highlands and Lowlands, or the Western physiographic region, is the largest physiographic region, entailing or covering nearly 44% of the total area of Ethiopia. As compared to that very large geographic region, you can imagine how wide or broad or narrow the total area of the Rift Valley region is, because it has a share of nearly 18% from the whole Ethiopian total area. But even though, in terms of area, even though this region is the smallest region, Okay, following the eastern geographic region. In this region, there exist a very unique features, geographic features. The deepest point in Ethiopia is found here in this region. The deepest point. This region hosts different geologic events, even today. Okay. This region hosts landmass of different heights, different magnitude. Okay. There are areas having an altitude of nearly 2,000 meters and even beyond that. And there are areas measuring below the sea level too. The lowest point in Ethiopia is also called Kobar Sink or Dalol Depression is found here in the Rift Valley region. Don't forget the features of the Rift Valley. This region experiences different geologic and geomorphologic events. Due to variations of altitude from the Afar Triangle up to Chobahar, climate too varies from one part of the Rift Valley to the other part of the Rift Valley. There are the places experiencing very hot temperature, nearly more than even 50 degrees centigrade. There are places experiencing a relatively cooler temperature, okay, as equal as the highlands too, of western and eastern. As a result, this region has diverse geologic and climatologic experiences, conditions. Okay. Having this diversity, let's divide the whole region and see each zone one by one. The Rift Valley region, just like the Western physiographic region and the Eastern physiographic region, this region too has different sections, different regions. Okay. As a result, the Afar Triangle, the main Ethiopian rift, and the Chobahar rift are the three sub-components, the three sub-regions of the Rift Valley region. What unique features each region has is a very important unit. What features are found in the Afar Triangle? What features are found in the main Ethiopian rift? And what kind of geologic, geomorphologic, and climatologic conditions are part of the Chobahar region? It's a very important question. Okay. Well, the Afar Triangle is part of not the Eastern Highlands and Lowlands, not the Western physiographic region, but part of the Rift Valley region. Okay. If somebody asked you which one is out, by just mentioning, the Tigray Plateau, the Afar Triangle, the Highlands Plateau, whatever, okay, we have to provide sufficient and convincing response to the one who rose this question. But to do so, what's expected from us is differentiating, okay, regions, points, and ideas one by one. As a result, the subgroups of the Rift Valley region, the subgroups of the Eastern Highlands and Lowlands, and the categories of the Western Highlands and Lowlands need to be clearly identified by your readers. In the Rift Valley region, the largest part of the Rift Valley is the Afar Triangle in terms of coverage, total area coverage. From the 18% total share, the Rift Valley region as a whole constitutes 18% of the total area of the country Ethiopia. Of this 18%, more than half of the Rift Valley region is part of the Afar Triangle, nearly 54%. From the northern tip of the Afar Triangle up to the northern part of the lakes region, up to the Awash River. Okay, that area covers, you can easily calculate, okay, out of 1,106,000 square kilometer, out of this number, the Rift Valley region, okay, has a share of up to about 18%. If so, numerically, you can easily compute or calculate the share of the Rift Valley region in terms of clear, vivid number. So that number, out of that number, you can calculate the share of the Afar Triangle and the share of the Jawahar region or the Lakes region. So the Afar Triangle is the northern part of the Rift Valley region and the largest as well as the widest part of the Rift Valley region. It is the northern tip, the northern part, the northern section of the Rift Valley region, number one. If somebody asked you the exact location or the relative location of this subsection, the Afar Triangle, you can easily and convincingly tell by just calling where Afar Triangle is, where Afar is, and where the Jawahar region, I mean the Awash River is. Well, the name of this section of the Rift Valley region is Afar Triangle, you can imagine. It has a triangular shaped depression. The depression resulted triangle-like. Okay. As a result, this region is also called Afar Triangle. Okay. The area is generally of low altitude as compared to what? As compared to the Jawahar and the Lakes region. This region is the lowest region in the Rift Valley region because this region has highlands of maximum nearly 700 meters above sea level. You can imagine. The maximum height of areas that are found here in this region has an altitude of not more than 700 meters, not more than. As a result, this is the lowest point in Ethiopia. But it has the lowest point, even below sea level. The point that's found in this region measures 125 meters below sea level. You can imagine how that region is the lowest region, not only in Ethiopia, but also in Africa and in our region. Okay. Having these geomorphic and geologic characteristics, what kind of uniqueness this region has? What are unique in this region? Okay. Afar Triangle is one of the most visited regions in Ethiopia. Even though the environment is very harsh, even though the environment experiences very high temperature, this region is one of the most astonishing and breathtaking place because this region has unique natural gifts. What are that gifts? Is a very important question. What makes this region unique? Which features are found in this part of Ethiopia? Number one, gravels are available. Don't forget that region is still hosting volcanic eruptions that pours frequently out new materials, new eruptions. Okay, very youngest rocks are available in this region because of the eruptions that poured out, that come out from beneath the surface of the earth, because that region has a very active volcanic activities, volcanic events. If anybody who needs that kind of feature, new pouring out, new coming out, new lavas, new rocks, okay, recently accumulated rocks, it's open only to visit that particular region, they are found triangle. Volcanic hills or highlands formed by volcanic eruptions, lava. Active volcanoes that are formed by recently accumulated rocks, volcanic reefs, lava fields, low lava platforms, ashes, ashes, and very hot, evaporations of water. Liquid particles are also coming out from the surface of the earth in the form of water or water vapor, in the form of ash, in the form of solid particles, whatever. Materials come out recently from beneath the surface of the earth in this part of Ethiopia, their continent. As a result, that region has a daily established landforms. Established and re-established landforms because of that lava, because of the accumulation of volcanic activities, volcanic eruptions. But the unique and prominent, amazing, attractive region of this part is the Cobalt Sink, the lowest point of the country and the continent too. Don't forget, not only this, there are also other landforms in this region, which are today served as a tourist sources, a tourist attractions. Cobalt Sink is not the only, but one of the very attractive and source of tourist attraction in Ethiopia. One of. There are also other recently established, recently accumulated and formed lava ridges, hills, so on and so forth in that region. Not only, there are also lakes. Even though the environment is very hot, very harsh, having the weather condition, temperature of about up to 50 degrees centigrade, you can imagine. Even though the area lacks rain and streams that supply, that feed, that help fill these depressions, so on and so forth, there are lakes in that region. Lake Abbey is one of the well-known lake in this part of the Rift Valley region. Lake Afro. Any domestic visitor or domestic tourist or international tourist, anyone who wants to visit this part of Ethiopia can enjoy not only by looking at the depressions, the lowest points, not only the eruptions that pour out, but also by just looking at that water bodies, so-called that lakes. And anyone is invited in this regard.
በትምህርት ከፍ ብሎ መብረር ይቻላል። ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ከከፍተኛ ትምህርት አግባብነትና ጥራት ኤጀንሲ ሙሉ ዕውቅናን ባገኘንባቸው በማስተርስ ዲግሪ ኤምቢኤ በስትራቴጂክ ማኔጅመንት፣ ኤምቢኤ በባንኪንግ እና ፋይናንስ፣ ኤምቢኤ በቢዝነስ ሊደርሺፕ፣ ኤምቢኤ በሪስክና ኢንሹራንስ፣ ኤምኤስሲ በኢንተርናሽናል ትሬድ እና ኢኮኖሚክስ ዘርፎች በእውቀት ለመቅረጽ የበቁ ፕሮፌሰሮቻችን አረንጓዴ መብራታቸውን አብርተዋል። በነገራችን ላይ በኬንያ ሀገር ከሚገኙ ስመጥር ዩኒቨርሲቲዎች በሚመጡ ፕሮፌሰሮች የትኩረት መስክ ትምህርቶቹ መሰጠታቸው ልዩ ያደርገናል። በምርጥ የትምህርት ስርዓት የተገነባው ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ በመጀመሪያ ዲግሪ በአቪዬሽን ማኔጅመንት፣ በሆቴል ማኔጅመንት፣ በአካውንቲንግና ፋይናንስ፣ በማርኬቲንግ ማኔጅመንት አስተማማኝ ትምህርት ይገቢውና ራስዎንና ሀገሮን ይለውጡ። አድራሻ 22 አደባባይ ወደ ሾላ በሚወስደው መንገድ ላይ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ህልሞን እውን ያደርጋል።
This region, as a result, is considered as the most unstable part of Ethiopia. Unstable, hostile part of Ethiopia. Okay, because it's unstable, because this region has volcanic activities, active volcanic eruptions. This region hosts active volcanic eruptions, landslide, earthquake, okay, which is common around that region. These geological activities occur frequently around this region. As a result, that region is not stable. Rather, it's a very hostile region. Nobody can predict, can anticipate even the temperature level, which is very high. Because the temperature level is determined by not only the altitude, but also the internal forces, volcanic eruption, that contribute a lot by just supplying different materials to the atmosphere that can absorb the incoming solar radiation from the sun and the re-radiated energy back from the earth. As a result, different articles having the potential to attract, to absorb the incoming solar radiation are hugely available around this region because of number one, the role of volcanic eruption. Okay. As a result, the region is the most hostile, unstable, and even unsuitable region for permanent existence, permanent settlement around that region. As a result, the region is not densely settled region, densely populated region. Because, as I've said several times, people do not prefer climatic conditions of some beyond some number. Okay, you, the Highland man, prefer probably 13 to not more than 35 or 14 degrees centigrade. Some of you may prefer a temperature level not more than 30, so on and so forth. Okay. But it's difficult to conclude that this region is free from residents. People are found around this region by just adapting that very extremely high temperature, by adapting that unstable and hostile environment. In fact, people can adapt any kind of environment. Okay? We have the potential to resist what's coming in. Because we people have the knowledge, experience, so on and so forth, that help us think and create something that will help us resist the highest temperature and the coldest temperature. In this environment, there are people, there are genuine people, to be honest. They're genius because they are there permanently. They just breathing that very harsh, that very hot temperature by resisting the shortage of water, the shortage of clean water even to drink, okay, the shortage of water to wash, so on and so forth around that environment. Even though water is available in a very smaller amount, you can imagine how salty that region is. Still, people adapt, people resist that salty environment. But even though the environment of the Afar Triangle is very harsh and difficult to imagine for those highland residents, that region is a very suitable region for the development of a nation because it has huge potential. It has huge resources. Don't forget. One of the tertiary geologic events, gifts, and gifted region is the Afar region. Don't forget. If you remember the sedimentations that were formed during the first and even during the second Cenozoic era, sedimentation began in the southeast, if you remember. Primarily, when the water transgrade towards the land from the ocean, the first sediment was formed there, was accumulated there. Don't forget. The second layer of that rock was also accumulated there, primarily. But the second and the upper, the youngest layer was primarily formed in the northern Ethiopia, central Ethiopia, and lastly, it completed its journey and dropped its rocks around that eastern part of Ethiopia. As a result, this region has a very huge potential, a very huge rock resource. Economically, if we properly develop, if we properly search where rocks are found around that Afar Triangle, what kind of rocks are found, if we properly identify the existing rocks, identify strategies to develop that, and allocate sufficient budgets, sufficient human power, skilled manpower, there are potentially very huge amount of resources that can help transform not only the region but also the country as a whole. It has salt resource. It has resources that can facilitate the agricultural activity, even though the water is seasonal. It has a very huge potential for high electric power generation, not hydroelectric power, but geothermal energy is possible around it. Okay. Geothermal energy is possible. So the region is a very precious region in terms of potential resource. But we are not, as a country in general and as a region, we are not in a position to appreciate that gift, and we are not in a position to promote not only to the domestic market, to the domestic developers, to the domestic investors, but also we are not good in promoting, announcing, advertising to the international developers. We are not also good to attract, invite those our business guys and even guys from abroad. Okay, but the region has a very huge resource in this regard. The second part of this region, don't forget, the largest region of the Afar Triangle, I mean the Rift Valley region, is the Afar Triangle, constituting nearly 54%. Don't forget it. The second and the middle part of the Rift Valley region is the main Ethiopian Rift. This is the name of this region, the main Ethiopian Rift, or the Central Ethiopian Rift, or the lakes region. It's possible to say the lakes region. The main Ethiopian rift is also called the lakes region or the central rift because it's found in between the Afar Triangle and the Chobahar region at the center. It brings these two extreme points, northern and southern, or northeastern and southwestern extremes of the Rift Valley region. What makes this region different from the Afar Triangle and what makes it unique from the third part of the Rift Valley region is a very important question. Well, geologically, it is a narrow belt of the Rift Valley that extends from Awash River or from the southern tip of the Afar Triangle up to the northern part of the Chobahar. From this, you can precisely know where the Chobahar starts and where the Afar Triangle completes its territory. Okay. This region is found in between the northern and southern its side. The northern part of the main Ethiopian rift or the lakes region is the southern tip of the Afar Triangle. That point of boundary is that's the Awash River. From the Awash River up to the northern part of the Chobahar region is nothing but Lake Cham around Arbamut. Okay. In between this extent, what is there is the main Ethiopian rift or the main lakes region or central region. This part of the Rift Valley is the narrowest and the highest part. Look, the Afar Triangle is the lowest part of the Rift Valley because it has highlands not more than an altitude of 700 meters. Don't forget. The highest point of the Afar Triangle is nothing but 700 meter altitudinal extent. But in this region, there are mountains having an altitude of higher than any mountains that are found in the Afar and the Chobahar region. As a result, this region is also called the highest region of the Rift Valley region. Not only, but also the narrowest part, because the depression, the depth of the depression, and the extent of the depression in this part is relatively level, flat, okay, than the Afar Triangle and even the Chobahar region. It has, you see, I mean, the highest points or the highlands of these regions have an altitude of nearly 1,000 up to 2,000 meters above sea level. You can imagine. With this total extent up to 2,000 meters, relatively this region is the highest region in the Rift Valley physiographic category. The flare in many places, okay, along the Rift Valley region, you can imagine, along that depression, this part of the Rift Valley region has filled by water. Permanently, water is filled in many lowland parts of the Rift Valley region, particularly in this sub-region. Okay. The floor in many places, as a result, is dotted by cinder cores and volcanic mountains. Okay. There are mountains. There are also depressions filled by water in this region. Okay. Don't forget that dotted cinders and mountains were formed by the volcanic eruptions during the first Cenozoic season. That eruption resulted in the accumulation of lava here and there. That lava, with the help of external forces like erosion and wind, resulted today the faces like cinder cones and volcanic laden mountains. Mountains like Mount Fantale, Mount Boseti, Mount Aletu, and other mountains are found around this region, from Marshy Area up to Albanese. Those of you from this region knew it very well. Since the region is mountainous, having an altitude of nearly 2,000 meters, you can imagine the climatic experience. You can imagine the weather condition of that region. This region is the highest region, mountainous region of the Rift Valley zone, the Rift Valley region. As a result, this region receives relatively cooler temperature than the Chobahar and than the Afar region. Cooler temperature. Don't forget, this cooler temperature results rain in many seasons of the year. As a result, the region is also considered as very mild and watery. Okay, there are lakes, there are marshy grounds, there are swampy areas, so on and so forth. As a result, lakes have received flood from this rain and filled by. Because of this, we have many lakes around this region. Today, many of us, including international actors, are invited to visit and enjoy on these natural gifts. This region, as a result of this watery nature, is suitable for recreational purpose. Okay, people visit it and enjoy. One of those who enjoyed on these lakes is me. I'm very lucky to be part of this, the most visited part of the country. Okay. I was very impressed. I really appreciate the secret of nature when I see one of the lake region, urban region. I was traveling frequently urban region in the first months of this year. I appreciate that region. I appreciate the gift of nature. Okay. So these natural gifts today helps us generate income by attracting people from across the world. This region, the main Ethiopian rift or central rift, is also suitable for agricultural purpose. That's what today Addis Ababa is dependent on. Addis Ababa today is almost dependent on this zone because irrigation agriculture is also available in this region and suitable for that purpose. And even though not well developed, geothermal energy is also possible in this region. There is a potential in this region to develop geothermal energy. Okay. Now we are planning to develop hydroelectric power by constructing historically the first big dam, a Renaissance dam. Hopefully, after that, we will have the chance to develop energy by using this Eastern gift, geothermal energy, and associated developments. From the Lake Chamo around Arbament up to the Chobahar or up to Lake Turkana. Another sub-region is also found and part of the Rift Valley region, the so-called the Chobahar region. This region is the southern tip of the Rift Valley region, the southern, as compared to other regions. This is the southern edge, the southern tip, the southern part, southern extreme of the Rift Valley region. Well, if you remember, the Upper Triangle is the largest part of the Rift Valley region. The second largest Rift Valley region is the main Ethiopian Rift, whereas the smallest one is the southern, and the smallest one is the Choba Rift in terms of total area, in terms of size. This region, as its name implies, is also called the Choba region. I'm sure you imagined what it means. It tells us that rift has chow with no doubt. Even though chow or salt is available in almost all parts of the rift, this region is also called the salty bahar, the salty zone, the salty water body, of the Rift Valley region. People named something by just checking what it is. People named that water body by just checking it, by just feeling it, by just tasting it. That water body is almost full of salt. As a result, it is chow bahar. You can imagine whether chow or salt is suitable or not for agricultural activities. Okay. Whether that chow water or salty water is suitable for irrigation purpose or not. You can imagine. Not only, but also that region has different geologic events, different landforms, including the highlands of Konso and other highlands not mentioned here, but that separates it from the main Ethiopian rift, okay, around the Lake Chamo. There are different highlands of different altitudes dotted around there. Okay, that irregularities, that ups and downs, and that hills and mountains that are found southward from the Lake Chamo and southward from the main Ethiopian rift are mountains that are found in the Chobahar region. Okay. Uniquely, this region has a feature of broad and shallow depression as compared to the main Ethiopian rift and the Afar Triangle. It has very broad depression, but relatively shallow than the Afar Triangle and the main Ethiopian rift. As compared to this one and the main Ethiopian rift, the Afar Triangle is the deepest, okay, depression surrounded by escarpments, high-rising escarpments, measuring, okay, many more numbers. Look, this region is the area that hosts a relatively broad and a relatively shallow depression. Don't forget. That broad, level, and shallow depression receives water from surrounding highlands and maintain it for a long period of time. As a result, this area that accumulates water for a long period, which is not lake, is called marshy area. Okay, this marshy area that accumulated water, okay, having flood, having water, having different grasses, trees, so on and so forth, are called marshy areas, covered by, for instance, tall grasses, in which the Sagar and Weto streams empty at the end of the day. Okay, Sagar stream and Weto stream join this part, this marshy area, flow towards this one, and empty itself there. Okay, this Chauban region is also called the mouths of the end points of Sagan stream, the end points of the seasonal Weto stream. There are streams named as Sagan and Weto. These streams originated from the highland parts of the hills of somewhere around Weto and around that southern extreme parts, flow towards the lowland regions, towards this Chabahar region, which is very broad but shallow in terms of depth. And at the end of the day, these streams and flowing water empty itself here. Don't forget, this water is a very salty water, a very chow water. Okay, chawuha, chawamauha. Don't forget. You can imagine whether this water body, whether this water is suitable for irrigation or not. It's difficult to produce goods and services using this water because the water is almost full of salt. Having this broad and general understanding about how Ethiopia is structured as highlands, lowlands, having this very significant understanding about your form, about the early structure of Ethiopia, about the land forms of Ethiopia, about the physiognomy of Ethiopia, the physical appearances of Ethiopia. Now, let you imagine how significant this kind of landform is. How this kind of landform, having very high-rising mountains like Ras Dashen, having the lowest point like Kovarsi, having places having moderate altitude, these landforms influence the economic, political, cultural, social, so on and so forth aspects here in Ethiopia. Landform has a significant impact on the development of the country, on the economic development, on the cultural exchange and cultural sharing. For instance, people that are found on the two sides of the mountain, the north and south, the leeward and the windward sides of the mountain. You can imagine whether these people have a potential to share culture or not. You can imagine how that kind of mountains influence the cultural sharing of those people who are found on the windward side and at the back on the leeward side of one very high-rising mountain. You can imagine how the Rift Valley, that depression, that very big depression, influence Ethiopia to bridge it by just building roads, by just building bridges. Okay? So landscape and landform, physiographic nature, physiographic setup, structure has a very significant influence on the Ethiopian economy, social capital and social development, political development even. Okay? This kind of landform is not smooth and easy to get access accepted by the people unless the government, for instance, build hospitals, build roads, connect this fragmented society. You can imagine the trust of the society on the government. As I said, this kind of landform has a challenge, has a problem on the political side too. It has also a very significant challenge on the economy. Unless, for instance, regions are integrated by a road network, unless regions are connected by social amenities, social infrastructure like hospitals, like security, administration, whatever. It's also very difficult to facilitate the economy of a nation. In Ethiopia, landform and life structure have a profound impact. Okay, it stifled or it impaired the fast growth of the country. It has a hindrance. It's considered as a hindrance or an obstacle because it is stifled or it is a challenge because it reduces the intra-regional trade. For instance, intra-regional trade is a trade that takes place within a country but within different administrative units, within different regions, for instance. Unless the government, for instance, connect Oromia region and Amhara region, Oromia region and Benishangul Gumuz region, Oromia region and Gambela region, Afar region, whatever. It is very difficult to ensure the macroeconomy and ensure the economic growth. Because unless the Amhara farmer supplies something to the Oromia farmer, unless the Oromia farmer using that input produce goods and services and supply surplus products to Gambela, Benishangul, so on and so forth, it's difficult to secure an external market, domestic market. As a result, it has an economic implication. It has implication on administration, politics. It has implication on cultural exchange, as I have said before. Unless there is a bridge, it's difficult to share culture. But in countries like Ethiopia, it's difficult to construct bridges. It's difficult to connect these disconnected regions by road infrastructure. Because if you remember and know, vehicles have a climbing capacity. That's what. Like, unless, for instance, we cut the mountains, it's difficult to force vehicles across that high-rising mountain because it has a climbing capacity up to some level. But cutting these mountains here in Ethiopia is very challenging. Okay, because we are mountainous. As a result, our regions are still disconnected, are still seeking roads, seeking social amenities like hospitals, schools, so on and so forth. As a result, we are very poor, we are disconnected, socially, economically, politically, so on and so forth. So it has an impact on the economy. It has an impact on the agricultural products. As I have said before, since we are an agrarian society, agriculture is perishable by nature. It's market sensitive. But our natural landscape, our structure, impels us from supplying roads. As a result, our rural part is disconnected and far from the market, from the center, from the city. As a result, you can imagine the volume of agricultural products that have been pushed before it reaches to the market. This is mainly because of absence of road transport, air transport, rail transport, so on and so forth. You can imagine how our farmers are suffering by absence of road transport, transport and by perishables. You can imagine how agricultural products and agricultural investment is challenging in mountainous areas, because that mountainous areas are susceptible to erosion. Okay? Because they receive rainfall almost throughout the year. That rainfall results flood, surface flood, and that flood washes away that very productive soil. As a result, the productivity of agriculture around these highland regions is very, very low because of these things. It has socio-cultural impacts on socio-cultural feeling. For instance, you can see those people who are far from the city, without road transport, without telecommunication network, without any social amenities like hospitals, so on and so forth. Because of relief structure, the governments do not provide this kind of facilities to this group of people. That group of people, at the end of the day, feel that they're marginalized. They feel that they're rejected groups, marginalized groups. They are considered as socially isolated groups, you see? So a relief structure has an impact on these issues, that people feel that they are socially marginalized, they are socially isolated, and they feel something, they are not as equal as urban groups, city dwellers, city residents, and so forth. It has an impact on soil, because in highland areas, what kind of soil, in terms of type, in terms of productivity, so on and so forth. You can imagine the lowland soil type. You can imagine the natural vegetation in highlands, lowlands. Ethiopia has diverse agroclimatic region. It has very cold region around Ras Dashi, temperate. It has very hot temperature and hot region, okay, desert region, semi-desert region. As a result of this diversity of climatic conditions in Ethiopia, in each climatic region, there are diverse vegetation species. Okay. In highland areas, there are vegetation species having broadleaf foliaceous and high-rising trees. In desert and semi-desert regions, you can imagine there are plant species that have very short, that are very short, and that have very, very thin leaves. very small leaf, but very long roots. You see, this diversity is mainly due to the existing diverse agroclimatic and relief structure. Because of this, the diverse relief structure, Ethiopia owns diverse life, okay, endemic life, naturally gifted life, okay, plant species and species of animals. It has also an impact on the hydroelectric power potential. Look, Ethiopia is a mountainous region. As a result of this mountainous nature of the country, many streams and rivers originated from these highland areas flow down to the lowland regions by crossing very high rising mountains. That mountainous parts of Ethiopia results the country to have different waterfalls, having different cataracts, rapids. Okay? One of the well-known waterfall here in Ethiopia is the Tisasat Fall or Chisarbai Fafati. One of, I'm not saying the only, but one of the most amazing, well-known, and the most visited waterfall here in Ethiopia. Okay. A river originated from the Gojam Plateau, particularly from Sakala Highland, crossed Lake Tana and flowed down to the lowland parts of Ethiopia, and it rounds the country. But in somewhere closer to Bahar Dar, as you all know, we have the most attractive waterfall. Okay, not only, but also almost all rivers of Ethiopia are suitable for hydroelectric power in different magnitude, in different extent, in different volume. Some parts of Ethiopia are suitable to generate a very huge hydroelectric power, and some others have a potential to develop at least some volume of hydroelectric power. These are some of the impacts of the topography or relief in general on the biotic life and abiotic life, on the socio-economic development of the country, on the social development, economic development, cultural development, on the political stability of the country. Of the availability of aquatic life. We have diverse life in many lakes, rivers, so on and so forth. We have diverse aquatic life. We have diverse arboreals or climbers. I mean, life that climbed trees and found around forests, trees, so on and so forth. Having such diverse relief structure helps us have diverse resources in general. But the question is not availability of resources. As I have said several times, the question is, are we using this natural gift properly? Are we converting these gifts into market? Are we market driven in this regard? And are we exploiting our natural resources, considering its sustainability or not? Okay. Our individual activities and group activities around our home, our working place, so on and so forth, should be very responsibly. We all are responsible to our natural resource. We all are naturally responsible to the coming generation. We all are responsible to keep our country, to maintain our existing resource. So we all should work, number one, to appreciate our resources. We Ethiopians are gifted in nature. To the best of my knowledge, we are gifted because we have almost all, we have everything. We lack nothing, but we are not using we are not appreciating our gift. We don't know what we have. First, we have to know what we have. By reading this kind of very, very short meetings and lessons, by reading books, so on and so forth, we have to know what we have. And then we have to appreciate, because the things we have are naturally gifted, naturally given, I mean. So we have to appreciate our nature. We have to thank. And then what's expected from us is exploiting these resources we have to the purpose of satisfying to the today's need, and at least sharing these resources to the coming generation. We have to share. That thinking is nothing but the thinking of sustainability. Whenever we use and satisfy our today's need, we don't harm the coming generation's opportunity. Okay? We don't ignore the coming generation's opportunity. We have to think the coming generation. We have to satisfy our today's need, but we have to think to share the coming generation too. So are some of the issues we have here in this chapter, and in this specific topic today. I really thank you for attending this session. To anyone participants, please receive my heartfelt and heartfelt appreciation. Read the issue once again and keep yourself, update yourself, and know your country's landform, natural resource, and think what to invest tomorrow here in your home. But to invest and at least improve your country's economy, you have to keep yourself and you have to be safe from today's global invisible enemy. Thank you very much for today, guys. Goodbye.
ልዩነት መፍጠር ዓላማችን ነው። ዓለም አቀፍ ተወዳዳሪ መሆን አለባችሁ። የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ ጥራትና ደረጃውን የጠበቀ ስልጠና በመስጠት ብቁ ዜጋ እያፈራን ነው። በፍላይት ኦፕሬሽን፣ በበረራ መስተንግዶ፣ በቲኬቲንግና ሪዘርቬሽን፣ በሆቴልና ቱሪዝም ሙያዎች አሰልጥነን ተወዳዳሪ እናደርጎታለን። ኮሌጃችን ካናዳ ከሚገኘው ኢንተርናሽናል ኤር ትራንስፖርት አሶሲዬሽን አያታና ከእንግሊዙ ICM ጋር በመተባበር ዓለም አቀፍ ዕውቅና ያለው ስልጠና እየሰጠ ይገኛል። በፍላይት ኦፕሬሽን፣ በበረራ መስተንግዶ የምንሰጣቸው ስልጠና ከኢትዮጵያ ሲቪል አቪዬሽን ባለስልጣን ሙሉ ዕውቅና አለው። አድራሻ ከጎላጉል ታወር 22 አደባባይ ወደ ሾላ በሚወስደው መንገድ ላይ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ ህልሞን እውን ያደርጋል።